Hello there and welcome to yet another episode of our Fat Talks that comes your way every other Thursday, 4 p.m. to about 5 or 6, depending on the conversation. Where is Texas? We also on our Spaces on Twitter, Spaces, now X Spaces. I think I prefer the new version that is X Spaces. Something changed about it. And so we're glad to have you today. We will be speaking very interesting conversations. Today is World Teachers Day. Did you know? Happy World Teachers Day to all of you teachers, and I'm very humbled that I have a teacher of teachers who actually has his roots elsewhere, but then he found himself in the
education.
Teaching. It's amazing. So we're going to have a very wonderful conversation. My name is Lynn Komjisha, and I'll ask you that when we are set, and we're having a few technical issues here and there, but we will be on our Twitter Spaces in just a few, and we will get into today's conversation. We are looking at education. Is it anything we should be paying attention to? Is it a viable pathway to effective leadership? Some people often say, I do not have to go to class to, do a couple of things. But we know that maybe sometimes you need guidance. And I think for me, to break it down, I feel leadership is basically who you are as a human being. You do not have to have a certain, label that says leader so and so. No, your qualities, your values, your personality, your purpose in life is actually what makes you a leader. And so that is me. I do not know how others define it, but today I'm glad to have Mr. James Kasaga Alnitwe. Now, this gentleman says we should not. He has a very big. I'm telling you, he has a very big CV, but in short, he is the CEO and co-founder Teach for Uganda. But before that, he's been into international development and experience working with the Carter Center in the US. So you guys, in short, we have somebody experienced in very many areas. He is very committed to economic and social justice, and you'll see in his story, most of you might have heard about him. It can be seen in his more than a decade of professional experience in international economics, international development of education, healthcare, and economics. And there's so much. If we go onto his CV, we might actually forget that we have a conversation to have with him. James, you're welcome.
Thank you for having me, Lynn, and happy World Teachers Day, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad when you say everyone, because that includes my parents. So my parents are both teachers by profession. And somehow they wanted me to be a teacher as well. And I was like, guess what? I found myself teaching.
Yeah.
Without necessarily going to class to study teaching.
Even now you're doing some acts of that.
That's for sure. So I'm glad we have you today, James, and indeed happy World Teachers Day. Okay, I'm looking for, you're such a very exposed person. You have had the privilege to attend very interesting, schools and learned a lot of things on the international scene. And here you are back to Uganda, where you start a Teach for Uganda organization. And I'm thinking, Teach for Uganda, why Teach for Uganda? Why not just teach Uganda, maybe? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand. How do you, with your life's journey, because already you told me you had different aspirations before you even found yourself here. How do you find yourself at Teach for Uganda?
Yeah, a great question, and really great to be here, because sometimes people confuse, teaching or education with so many other things. But I think for me, where I want to start is sometimes, as you mentioned, leadership is about finding your life purpose. What do you want to be, and why do you do it, and why are you here in the first place? So again, I'm Kasaga James Alnitwe in that order. I was born and raised in southwestern Uganda in a small village called Kempungu in Kashari.
In Kashari.
Which is south in Kashari, next to Mbarara, right?
Yes, yes.
So my parents, my mother was a primary school teacher who, as your parents, my mother had dropped out of school at senior 4 to be married off to my dad, who was a cow herding man, gentleman.
Wow, wow.
So long story short, she wanted all her kids to get that great education. And now you see the education now starting to come, because
Yes, yes.
mothers have a lot to do when it comes to the education of their children.
Absolutely.
So because of that, she started teaching me from home. She would teach at a school called Mbuga, which was so far away from home, and I could not walk at 4 years old, or even to do like what you would call daycare at that point. Long story, between 6 and 10, my mom passes away, my 3 siblings pass away, my dad passes away to HIV and AIDS. So life gets redefined as we know it. I find myself with a grandmother raising me, and going now back to my uncle in Kashari again, where my maternal uncle to attend Katebe Primary School. Long story, it was because of a teacher, again, a teacher Amos, and I mention his name because it's World Teachers Day and everyone should know the role of teachers, who saw this inquisitive young man and really worked hard to ensure that I don't miss school. Sometimes I would miss school because I would have to go help my grandmother in the garden,
Yes.
or take care of the cow that was remaining. And sometimes I would miss school. But he had seen that this little boy has something about him. And there's a quote recently that I shared about that a teacher should always think about the qualities of this child and their potential, and try to bring out their potential.
Yes.
And long story short, I end up passing PLE, the best student in those 4 schools. We didn't even have a center. These are schools where children walk to school barefooted, 10 kilometers from school. Katebe Primary School, Nyampiche, Rishamiro, Nengo. Nobody would even know where they are, probably a few in the audience. Then the long journey to look for the family, the first lady. Someone said you have to look for the first lady or the president to give you an education. Finally, a few months around Easter, before others were running to school, I landed in front of the first lady. And at that time had been given an opportunity, admitted at Ontario School. So Ontario had admitted me, Ontario. It's where our presidents went, where President Kagame went. A little boy from the village, now we're going to attend the bigger school in the West,
Absolutely.
right? A bigger boys school. But did we have the resources? No, my grandmother could not afford. So it was when others were going back to school, PL is rather senior one is starting, everyone is running, so and so they're buying the Mukebe suitcase, everyone is excited, the son of so and so, Bambi, the grandmother's child is not going. So Kaka, my grandmother, goes to the church and asks, how can I get my child to school? That's how someone said, send the boy to the president. He's the only one who can afford him secondary education. Now, I skip all that story because it's long. Somehow I end up in front of the first lady in Rwachtura, and she chooses to give me a mother who lives here in Bugolobi somewhere, called Mama Penny Chembabazi, and I was brought from the village all the way to St. Lawrence because I had even missed term 1.
Oh dear.
Now, it was when I got the chance to be at St. Lawrence, and I was studying with sons of doctors, Kampala businessmen, you know what I'm saying, ministers, MPs, because St. Lawrence was a great school,
it was.
And so that's when I was saying I need to focus on my education so that one day I can also go back to my village and make a difference. And after that, that's when I got this wonderful sponsor to the United States. I ended up at Florida State University for my university and studied actually to become a doctor, and didn't really become a doctor because I met someone that changed my life. And that was President Jimmy Carter. As an intern in health, I was interning at this place in Atlanta, and someone says, the president comes in to meet us, and he introduces himself, and there were like 2 Africans in that group, and it was me and another young lady from Nigeria. And he says, young man, where are you from? I said, I'm from Uganda. And he says, imagine this president who is revered globally, President Jimmy Carter, who has done global health, done everything, and he says, I see you. I think what's your passion? What do you want to be? I said, I wanted to be a doctor, but my purpose I feel in my heart I should go back to Uganda and work with young people who need an education like myself.
Right.
He said, go and live your purpose. Those young people in your country need you. And for me, that's when the ball started turning, that this is what I needed to be focusing on. Giving young people in my country an opportunity to also see themselves, that they can discover their purpose and actually live it through education.
Wow, wow. So you get to a point where you meet this very world famous leader, and he looks at you and, you know, picks you out of the many. And all you could say, because I can imagine a million things anybody else could have said to this man. And I don't see them saying, my passion is A, B, C, D, I'd like to do, no. Most people are like, can I visit you, you know, can I be your friend? I need some money, you know.
Yes.
In fact, there's a time I was interviewing some people, I will not mention names, and they had a moment with the president, our president here. Before him at State House.
Yes.
And he asked them, what do you want? And imagine, I say, me, you see, I need money to improve my poultry farm. I need money to take my children to school. He's like, what do you want? I want to shake your hands. Guys, you've got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Looking at this gentleman, all you could think about was, my passion is this. How do you arrive? Because I want to look at a young youth who was. By the way, thank you for joining us on our spaces. Go to our spaces on Twitter and join us and join this interesting conversation. We are speaking to Mr. Kasaga James Aninitwe, and he's a typical Ugandan. Both names suggest, well, guys, he's typical Ugandan. Now, the youth out there, because I don't want to think it's because of your past.
Yes.
I don't want to think it is because you still felt deeply touched by what you went through. Okay,
Yes.
it was there, yes, but you could have said something else because you wanted to run out from this. But you chose to say, my passion is to help these people out of A, B, C, D, and Z. Didn't you have an option?
Didn't I have an option?
Yes.
Well, I had many.
Because you were studying already.
Yes,
Something else
and also I also was in a land of opportunity.
Exactly.
Most people die, I mean, like trying all the best to go to the United States, right? So, but I guess for me, you know, thanks to the foundation of education that I had at Florida State University, and the mentorship and the service opportunities we had that exposed us, and I want to talk about that education. We talk about it at Teach for Uganda, and I'll be leaning back into it. It should teach the head, the heart, and the hands. It should teach you to reflect about your own life and what you want to be, and why are you here. Because sometimes people, as young people in our country, we look at people who drive big cars or have big homes, and we admire that, to get that very fast, but sometimes we don't look at their stories. And so I had the opportunity at Florida State, which I call a privilege, to help me understand who am I as a human being, how did I end up here, right? And what do I want to be? In fact, I had opportunities to intern in financial firms in New York and get money. And don't get me wrong, I needed money. My grandmother was still in the village in Churhura this time,
Yes.
you know, needing support.
Yes.
Even when I was working in college, I was sending money home to support my family. But there is this thing that always stuck with me. I remember very well when I went home, and I'm going to share this story, when the First Lady had given me the opportunity for the scholarship to return. They gave me a vehicle, which is a privilege I also call, to go say bye to my grandmother, because they were worried, thanks to her, that this young man has come here, he's 12 years old, he has left the grandmother. What will happen to the grandmother if she never hears from him again? Remember, this is 1993. There was no cell phones. There was no mobile phone to call her. So I remember giving me a Hyundai Elantra. I sat with a gentleman called Mugera to drive me to say bye to my grandmother in Kashari. And I was, you know, Kasaga James Aninitwe Munyankore, and we could not even communicate. Somehow, by sign language, we communicated. I took him to my village. So as I approached my grandmother, I ran inside, I said bye to her, I hugged her, she cried. As I was heading out, the whole village, the children in that village, in Kempungu, and the parents and everyone. Remember, in my village, there was never a car of
Yes.
that sort. Or there was always a lorry for the matoke.
Yes.
Or for the goats
the
and
cattle.
cows. For the cattle, thank you. So I'm sharing that to be, so as the car is driving off to this new opportunity, this new world I am going to, all these children are running after the vehicle, and I'm seeing them. You know how kids in the village run after the car, Kasaga has brought the car, and I'm seated comfortably, and I'm seeing in the rear mirror,
Yes.
the dust, going back on the, like, it gets me emotional, the dust falling back on these children.
Yeah.
And something triggered then, Aline, and something in my spirit said, remember that you are one of them.
Do not forget that. Even as you drive away,
Yeah,
you were once the same.
you were once the same. And when you say it even now, it gets a bit.
Oh.
So
I know.
as I go my work, as I study, I'm privileged in the US, that image, even when I would sleep, would never leave me. And so it's not even, it is only befitting that I have to come back and now work with children in Mayuge, deep down in Namutumba, in Namayingo, where we are trying to provide an education so that children like those, the Kasaga of those, can also have an education.
So when you look back at that time, at that point, that moment you're being driven away from your village, and you feel that intense connection, and you're like, in as much as I'm here, that is me right there. That is me right there.
Yeah, that human connection.
So now I want to bring us back here. So you come back, then you start teach for Uganda. Even when you're in the US, the image is still there. But still, you could say, I want to change. I mean, I could do anything. I'm able to do just about anything. Why teach? Why teach? Is it education that changes lives? Is it education that has made you who you are? Or what if they gave you opportunities, maybe perhaps to work in a certain industry? Would it have been the same story,
Those are great questions. I don't presume that I have all the answers.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad it's a conversation.
Yeah.
But there is something about in life and for leaders acknowledging the privilege that you have. You know that saying even in our culture that too much is given, much is expected. Right?
It's even in the Bible.
It's even in the Bible.
Yes.
And I was raised in a Christian home. My caretaker was like, there's always that feeling that we have that it's not just for just, for you to go drive a nice car also and have a mansion and get married to a beautiful person, and life ends there.
Yes.
There was that inkling. So as I was planning to return and this purpose really became strong, I realized that this is something that I needed to do, and I knew because education had given me that privilege.
Right.
And so I worked with my colleague Charlotte, who I had met. Even when I came back, I started out not to teach for Uganda. I started at a place called Educate as a partnerships manager, working to help take leadership, entrepreneurship, to these schools. It was there that I met my colleague, our co-founder, Charlotte, and we kept wondering about these children from rural communities who are dropping out at alarming rates.
Yes.
7 out of 10 were not making it out of primary school. Imagine when you have 100 children in a classroom, P1 to P7, and by P7 only, 30 of those are able to sit the national exam, and then the other one are able to get to secondary school. So the people that we were seeing were just those who have survived to make it to secondary school. Now let's not talk even about university.
Yes.
So it became stronger and stronger and stronger as you work. And that's what I tell young people. Don't just wake up and if you have an idea, build it slowly. Because it grew with me. And then I even took a fellowship to India, where I spent time. And it was in India actually that I started reflecting and writing about these articles. One article ended up in the New York Times, almost got me trouble complaining about, why is education not giving all our children an opportunity to be like us, to get the So someone reached out at me and said, if you have an idea, why don't you develop it? And so I started with Charlotte, slowly to developing the idea of Teach for Uganda after we had seen Teach for India, after we had seen Teach for America. getting young people fired up, excited about leaving their comfort zones, graduates like ourselves, being trained and placed in these schools, rural UPE schools, the same that I went to, the same that all of us, majority of Ugandans went to, where majority of our MPs went to, and mentor. You as an engineer, you as a journalist, mentor this young girl that one day she'll be also in your shoes. And that's how it all started.
And that's how it all started. And it's one of those amazing stories, because I am looking at somebody privileged, and allow me, someone privileged who could have done just about anything, but thought about going back. And this reminds me, allow me pick a quote that I saw earlier on Twitter. This was Comrade Otoa, Tony Otoa. He's supposed to join us on the spaces. I think he will join in a few. And he said, when I joined at Teach for Uganda this year as board chair, it was on the premise that if we all did our small bits, we would go a long way in solving education inequality.
Exactly.
Visiting and seeing the children and the schools we support in Uganda makes me believe in the power of possibility that the teachers evoke on a daily. And he was actually celebrating World Teachers Day. And he says, I want to salute the great ladies and gentlemen who wake every day to create the leaders we deserve. Now, I want you, there are many reasons why I picked this. One, because of our topic today, we are speaking education and effective leadership, okay? And here he says we are celebrating teachers, and then he goes on to say, I want to salute the great ladies and gentlemen who wake every day to create the leaders we deserve. Create the lead. This is where I ask you, and in your journey to where you are right now, James, do you feel education made you the leader you are right now?
Yes, thank you for that great question, and kudos to Mr. Tony Otoa for being such a fantastic leader, let's say, because he leads with his heart, but also with his skills that are so impeccable in terms.
And I think earlier you mentioned, sorry to cut you, you said heart, head, and hands. And
hands.
And I feel for an effective leader, this is all you need.
That those must coordinate, because you cannot escape it. You should still remain a human being, but still achieve what you need to achieve. But let me step back to education as a viable pathway for leadership.
Yes.
When we returned, Charlotte and I, think about co-founding Teach for Uganda, we did a long research in all these communities, why even NTV was sharing 1 million children are dropping out of school. And all of us had been staring at this problem that had been here since our colonial times, and nobody had said, come on, how come our brothers and sisters are languishing and nobody's thinking about it? And for us, we realized that actually it's a problem of leadership, because leadership, again, as we said, should actually, it's let me even find the right quote that says it here with Martin Luther King. He says, the function of education is therefore to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. But education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society.
Yes.
Let's say that education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason but with no morals. Gifted with reason, but with no morals. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Wow. So we started thinking, is it even moral? Is it even ethical that our brothers and sisters are dropping out of school? We have the privilege, we have the opportunity. What can we do? And at Teach for Uganda, we believe that leaders should be the ones who are able to work out how to solve problems in society. They should be able to point others to where we can all work together to improve our societies and make them better.
Right.
So we started this idea with, there is a deficit of leadership in our system, and all graduates that we pick that join us should come with 3 things. They should have the passion, wanting to serve. They should understand their purpose and why they are coming to join this mission and vision. Then they should be willing, to continuously learn, to grow their resilience in these communities because they are going to be challenged. And lastly, they should understand that a leader does not necessarily become a leader in comfortable positions only. That
Yes.
it's when you are challenged, it's at the tough times. The Mandelas did not come Mandelas and the story. The Patrice Lumumbas did not come the Patrice Lumumbas and the story because they were just sleeping at home and saying, I don't want to look there. The President Museveni did not say, okay, let's see whatever is happening in the country. No, they went there. They went to what we call leading on the edge. And it was then that actually they discovered their potential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Wow. These are very interesting things. I'm looking at the passion, the purpose, and this is what we are passionate about here at Fidelis Leadership Institute and at FAT Talks. FAT being faithful, available and teachable. And these are really key for any leader. And so when you mention that you've got to identify your passion and your purpose for it, for you to become a leader, you must have these at your core. They must be able to define you. If you look at me, how do you define me? So I want to believe that with all that, of course, working with your passion and purpose, and the desire to continuously educate or learn and improve yourself got you here. And so it justifies our question that yes, you need some sort of education.
You do.
In whatever sort of leadership, whatever level of leadership you're at, you need some sort of education. Now, so you start, but first of all, congratulations. All these years, when you look back,
Thank you.
When you look back, when you started with your partner, when you look back, so far, do you say kudos to us, or are there certain things you're yet to achieve?
Yeah, that's a good one, and thank you so much. It's always tough, again, for leaders even to see themselves as leaders. I mean, to this day, we see ourselves, and if you asked Charlotte Iraguha, who is now by the Wat Kololo, in the middle of it with the teachers,
yes.
And the team, at that time, let me tell you, we started in Luwero. We had no money.
Wow.
Luwero being the former, it's known for the long war that happened and families that were affected. And we started in a place called Butuntumula village.
I've heard about it.
Yes. And we took on 8 schools that had literally few teachers, high numbers of children, lots of dropout rates. And I always share with her, do you remember those times in the dusty roads of Butuntumula before we even had a vehicle to call our own?
Right.
Just to people. I remember going to Makerere to start. She was at the economic school trying to hire graduates, smart people looking like you, nice at Makerere. And I was in Barara University trying to hire our first cohort of leaders. And someone met Charlotte, the professor said, young lady, are you trying to be a politician? Do you really believe that this idea of you hiring these wonderful looking, all at Makerere, they will go and serve in those, ambitious, they will go and serve in those villages that you're talking about? And she came to me and said, James, I still believe we can do it. And I said, we can do it. I had come back from Barara University and I shared my story with a young man at the time was the guild president on Barara University. And stories are important because they let you in. So Charles Obore became our first, he was former guild president, imagine, guild president on Barara University. When I asked him, let me speak to your seniors, the ones that are, we call them seniors or soon to graduate, the third years.
Yes.
He said, oh, the hall is down there, my assistant can help you. He had an office. He was a big man, Charles Obore.
It's a big
president of the guild.
That is a big office.
So he came along and stood at the corners. He watched me. I shared my story. By the time I ended, he said, Mr. Kasaga, how do I apply? Today, Charles Obore not only graduated in the fellowship, he's started Communities Beyond Imagination and is in Kumi back in his home district, helping girls who drop out at alarming rates of 99 to 100, and is giving them an opportunity of an education. In fact, Charles Obore today is being funded by the same funders that fund Teach for Uganda, some of them.
Wow.
One of the young people Charlotte Iraguha hired, and I want to mention him, Moses Ruharo, an economist who was even interned with Bank of Uganda. He wanted to be like the former late Mutebire. He said, he's a man from Kanungu, tall gentleman. He chose to join us. He taught in that Butuntumula school. At the time of graduating, I asked him, there's an opportunity of a scholarship at Georgetown University. Moses, it is suited for you. I know your story. I know that you can. He believed in the story. He applied. Not only joined Georgetown University on scholarship in DC, he just graduated as the leader of the student government. And guess where he is now? He was introducing us to the UN Foundation. He's now at the UN Foundation, the first Ugandan.
Wow.
The first, probably he said, among 300 people working at the UN Foundation in New York. I mean, I have an image to this day. He said, I am the one trying to advocate for Africans. And guess what he's doing? He's helping a coalition of civil society organizations across Africa, Latin America, to do the same work we do today.
Wow.
In sustainable development goals.
Yes.
Now, had we said, oh, we are not politicians, let's not go there. Where would the story of Charles Sobore
Be.
or Moses Ruharo be? And so for me, if you say success, that's what I say, oh, maybe there is a glimmer of that.
That's right. And you know, when you say all this, it gives me some goosebumps for one reason. I like to hear stories of people who've impacted. They were impacted, and so they've gone back to impact others. You know, it's one of those things that is hard to come across. Some people are trying to do it, others are failing miserably because we tend to be selfish. And this is something I really appreciate about teachers. They're not selfish. A teacher will take you all in and will give you the best he or she can and remind you that you have a purpose in life. And then you've got to go forward. And to be honest with you, I am where I am because of numerous teachers I encountered. One told me, but Lynn, you're good at this. I think you should focus more on this. How about you? Let's tweak it like this. And before I knew it, I was here. I was looking elsewhere. Away today is not about me.
I love that. Can I share something right there for teachers? And so we have it in our office and behind Charlotte's desk, and it's a reminder. It says, you are not just a teacher. You are the steward of the world's most greatest resource, children.
Wow. Wow. You're a steward.
You are a steward of the world's most precious resource, children. And for me, I add brains and children, because if we don't shape our kids, use their brains to do good, look at the challenges that we have today in our society. Climate change, tribalism, racism, whatever. Women are not getting, their menstrual hygiene thing. There's a lot of challenges. But if we train our children, if we teach our kids to understand that I come to a world where I'm not here to learn things, to regurgitate them and take them in. I come to add value to this world. We should not teach children or even youth to learn what we learned. Because the world that we are going to enter, we don't know it. We should teach them.
And it's evolving.
It's evolving. We should teach them to create their own world. A world where they will be able to face climate change and find solutions.
Yes.
A world where they will find the new diseases like COVID and find solutions. But if we teach them to learn what we learned, we are doing ourselves a disservice and their generation.
And a huge one at that. Back to our conversation earlier on, before we sat down officially, we were in an informal conversation with James, and he mentioned that it is important for one to sit with themselves and appreciate who they are, okay, and focus on a passion, right? And then now you bring it out, you say, we've got to teach our children to appreciate the world they are in and create it for themselves. Now, James, it is a bit challenging when you look at our education systems here. Especially, let me take an example of Uganda. Our education system is that we learn the same things. What I learned is probably what they are learning. There's been some change, by the way, in the curriculum, and thank heavens. I hope it is entirely different. But what do education systems, because you have been to India, it has its own education systems. You've been to the US.
Yes.
You have partaken of the Ugandan education system.
Yes.
When you compare, are there education systems that prepare us for what we ought to be?
Yeah.
And when you look at Uganda and what you're doing right now, are you doing the same, or you have tweaked it?
Yes. Thank you. And yes, I have been to several education systems, the Ugandan, the India, the US, spent more time, visited other places, but those are major. I think, again, we go back to the same question. There's no greater education system than its quality of its teachers. I think that's what we always say, that there's no greater education system than the quality of its teachers. Our Ugandan curriculum, actually, when you looked at it, even when you see the doctors that have come out of our system, or even other leaders, it was great for the times, right? It was great for the times, and over now, thanks to the Ministry of Education, there's a lot of rethinking, and really, you see there's a new competence curriculum now in secondary school.
Yes.
Even in primary education, there's the thematic curriculum now that we are working with to teach children. We always, actually, I don't know, our system always has these leaders who are thinking ahead. Now the challenge that we have, Lynn, is always translating that policy into reality. And guess who does that? It's the leaders in those positions plus the teachers.
Right.
Now, where TFU, Teach for Uganda, enters is to ensure now that our teachers, our school leaders, our government, local district leaders that we partner with, because every district, we are now, by the way, in our 11th district. Imagine who started in Luwero, our single district. Now we are in our 11th district in southwestern Uganda, in Hoima, Kagadi, and Chikube, with several in central and eastern Uganda. We ensure that we work with the understanding of the government from the ministry all the way to the district level. But this idea of leadership, it starts with the leaders at the district understanding why education should be having these things. Kids to discover their purpose and visions, kids to become student leaders early on, children to understand the world that they live in. Right now, we are probably the only organization with a climate change education that we are using the national curriculum, but we are infusing this idea of the aspects of the environment and where I live, and water systems and trees and climate change. Why do we do that? Because education, again, should be able to teach our children to understand the world that they may not even know that is coming, and be prepared for it. So again, it goes back to leadership. Are the leaders contextually understanding the challenges we face? Are they intentional in ensuring that whatever is being taught in the curriculum is preparing our children? And also, are we preparing the teachers to have the mindset, the skills, and the attitudes to deliver it? That's where, you know how they say the devil is always in the details? Yes. Yeah, and one of those countries that has gotten it so well, of course it's a Scandinavian country, is Finland. Even America, they are still figuring out it. There's a lot of inequality even in America. Finland has gotten it well because for them they have reached a level where a teacher is as qualified, Finland and South Korea and Japan, I think, and the teacher is as qualified as definitely a lawyer or a doctor.
Wow. And the changing world, you mentioned there's what they call ESG and sustainability. And it's slowly, it's like AI, it's slowly getting into our spaces. I was reading about it earlier. And so when you hinted on our students, learning, getting exposed to climate change and how we can come up with solutions, I went directly to that because it's somehow related. Now, I want us to look at COVID-19 opened our eyes even for things we never expected would happen. And it opened us, we were doing online teaching, but it wasn't serious really. And now we are
It was called distance learning.
It was called distance. Yes, thank you. It was called distance learning. It was for bougie people. And those of you on the spaces, we're glad you joined us. We really appreciate. Please, if you really want to ask a question or a comment, you will ask for speaker rights, and then we will let you in on on our conversation, and you can comment here and there. But what I'm trying to ask James here is the integration of online teaching that now is the in thing, and schools are asking for a lot of money. We want computers, want blah blah blah. But let's look at the integration of technology in learning. Is it going to change the status quo? Are we going to see an improved because with this you're exposed to a lot of things. The Internet of Things. Now we have AI. Now we have a lot of things happening. And so with this technology integrated in our curriculums, in our studying day in and day out, do you think it's going to change anything?
Yeah, a great one. Again, and I don't presume to have all the answers, but at Teach for Uganda, again, as we prepare our leaders, we prepare them also for the world of AI and technology, because we believe that if the Chinese and the Indians and the Americans are all on AI, then if we don't think through it, then we'll be left behind, right?
Absolutely.
Again, the jobs of the future will be for only those who are prepared, right?
Yes.
For it. So at Teach for Uganda, again, as you know, for me, the challenge I always have, again, is AI, we talk about it, and the Internet of Things, it's in Kampala, you know, and it's in the cities of Mbarara and Jinja and others. But when I talk about, Kamdoke, which when I talk about deep in Mayuge, in Bwonda, when I talk about, Kagadi district deep in southwestern Uganda towards the border of DRC where we work, where recently our monitoring and evaluation team had to break down and it's people to pull those vehicles out. It's hard to say Internet of Things or AI in those communities. So let's first start there. We need first of all, government has a role to play. Civil society organizations like Teach for Uganda have a role to play to work with government and pull our corporate leaders, by the way, to first bring internet service providers to ensure equity.
Right.
To ensure that not just Kampala kids should not be the ones with the access. Access should be also for kids. We should first extend electricity to reach those rural kids, and we should be able then to start now access for all. After access, then we should be able now to define what is our strategy towards using technology to help our children learn for the future. Absolutely. Otherwise, you will find, my child goes to a daycare at an international school in town, which I will not mention. I was there, and literally I wrote a piece in the Nile Post. You can find it. I was about extending, technology opportunities to local children. It's something like that on the Nile Post. I found children as young as 13 and 14 and 15 discussing AI. I almost thought that we should put it on TV and our MPs should watch it. Yeah. I mean, they were so informed, these international school kids, and they were all Ugandans with just a few children discussing AI and its implications for our economies. Yes. And I was blown away. To be honest, I had goosebumps. And then my quick reflection went to our poor children. It reminds me of that photo in Nkono Primary School, in Chikalu, where Mr. Otowa has been, where dust is still filling up those classrooms, where we have 1,300 children in one school and with just, 7 classrooms. Right. So that's why I think together we will need first to work with the fierce urgency of now, what Martin Luther King calls the fierce urgency of now. Government, ISPs, and I call upon them. It cannot be a challenge of government alone, because government resources, they're always limited. At the end of the day, how much tax can they pull out of you that we start crying ourselves? It becomes, but how can we work together? And what I saw in India is that in India, the government was able to allow corporate companies to invest a certain percentage in education or social services, and they would give them some kind of tax break. So that should be done so that we first quicken the equity challenge and solve it, and then talk about the strategy for AI and technology and how our kids could learn for the future.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Mr. Tony Otoa. He's on our spaces right now. Tony Otoa, if you could give speaker rights to Tony, I want to tickle his mind further, because earlier on he tweeted, or he posted something that really touched me, and he says, it was so he says, when I joined Teach for Uganda, we hinted on Italia, this year's board chair, it was on the premise that if we all did our small bits, we would go a long way in solving education inequality. And James, I asked you, I think in different forms, why you picked on this particular passion, yet you had opportunities at your disposal. And this is where I want Tony to speak on the issue of us doing our small bits would go a long way in solving, not just solving education inequality. It's, I think, in every sphere of our lives.
Yep.
Please give Tony speaking rights, and then I could ask him a question. But in the meantime, let's just continue this conversation, and still about doing our bits. You remember that picture you have painted? It is still in my face as well. That picture of you being driven away from your village for the first time. You came in with a very big car, and I'm looking at those children, hey, screaming your name, and the dust filling up their eyes, and you're looking back and saying, that is me. I should never forget that. But the fact that you went back, paid back, for me, that is very, very interesting and very important. And I want us to speak to that bit, because we are human beings. We can get all these opportunities. But if we go back, it's hard to go back, you know. In Uganda, it's very hard. Let's look at Uganda.
Let's be honest, right?
Everyone wants to run. I'm like, where is the money? I am headed there.
Yeah.
It is going to change my life. I don't care. You people, we become different when we get the opportunities, when we get the responsibilities that put us in spaces that are of influence, of power
and opportunity.
And yes. we do not look back. So as leaders, does our going back change anything about who we are? Does our going back make us better leaders than the rest that are not going back? Where is the line? Where is that thin line?
That's the deeper one. That's a deeper one. And I do believe that going back helps us, because even Tony shared said the Baganda have a saying, you know, then it is easier to know where I'm headed. When I know where I come from, I know where I'm headed. And actually also education helps us. And this is the education that I was talking about that opens the mind to have the moment to reflect.
Yes.
And sometimes it is a privilege, because I feel like I have had that privilege of being in spaces where I am able to be challenged to reflect, both in my education at the university, but also in the service projects I did at the university, which afforded me that. Sometimes, again, I challenge our universities here. They pack students, you know, in the US, for example, where I got my education at Florida State University, the first year, each undergraduate course is 4 years. The first year is for you to discover yourself, who you are. You're taking all the liberal arts courses, wherever you're showcasing, you're sitting in classes on finance and economics, on writing and music and others. You're shopping around to understand, where do I lie, where my passions are, where my purposes are. And then second year, which they call sophomore, now you start to align. And I hate to belabor this too long. By third year, then you now have defined your major, what you call your major.
Yes.
And by the fourth year, you're finally doing your courses for your major, and you're graduating, and you write a thesis about that. The issue with our Ugandan education system, I feel like, because you jump in, you have 3 years to finish, and that's it. And sometimes you're even given a course that you don't even care about.
And then you're called half-baked.
And then you come out and you don't know, what do I do with myself?
Yeah.
So there's something there, and I'm sharing it in humility, because this is my experience. I don't say it's everyone's experience, but that's what I've noticed through my years of experience. So we need to start there. Can we redefine what exactly is education, especially higher education. When someone enters a university at 18, are they learning about who they want to be within those short 3 years? Are they getting guided to experience the world and then discover who they are, their purpose? That's one. Two, in going back, there's a saying, the Sankofa African saying, that sometimes, and this comes out of Ghana, that I also came across in my, that it's a bird, it's a Sankofa bird that look as a mouth that looks back, and then the feet are planted going forward.
Right.
That it is through reflecting about our own past, right, that we plant our feet in a foundation to define the direction that we hope to take.
Wow.
And if we forget that, it is easier to lose purpose along the way. And I'm not saying I am yet there. I mean, there are challenges that I think about. There are problems I want to solve back home. Today I have my Ugandans. Teach for Uganda is in 11 districts. We have 438 teachers, fellows teaching in these communities, 40 staff at the office. I've never gone back to Kashari Primary School. We employ literally almost 500 Ugandans. At the end of the month, my colleague Charlotte and I, we are like, we better have the money because lots of families will suffer.
Yes.
But today I have my fellow Kasharians and Chiruhurans. Why aren't you bringing Teach for Uganda to Chiruhura? Yeah, that's the question.
That's the
yeah. So I have to redefine that to the funder because apparently Chiruhura and Kashari, they are privileged than Busoga and others.
Yeah.
But let's give Mr. Otoni. But that's my take.
Tony would like to. I think he hasn't yet. He's yet to get the rights to speak. Could you kindly, Tony? We would like to hear from you. But in the meantime, as we continue this conversation, there's lots that keeps popping up as we speak, and it reminds me of when I was growing up and looking at ambitious children and students, and I'm like, do they actually know their purpose? I remember I had a moment when I sat down with myself and started asking myself, what is my purpose in life? I kept asking myself for a very long time.
And at what age were you then? Were you in university or out?
No, it started when I went to senior 5.
Okay.
And I said, but what is, people keep pushing me into leadership positions, this one. So like there was always that push around me. You know, you can be head girl, you can be this, and I eventually became head girl, yes. But then they kept pushing. I'm like, so what is my purpose? Am I supposed to be a leader? But do I have to hold a position, for example, in government or anywhere to be a leader? I think I can be a leader without necessarily, you know, holding a politician position or a huge title. And this we had a conversation about. If we are to define leadership, is it the titles? Is it the actions? Is it I don't, up to now, I still ask myself, this person calls themselves a leader, but they're behaving in a certain way.
Yes.
This one is also behaving in a certain way, and they're still a leader. We are always comparing. But in your definition, would you say a leader ought to have a huge title with them?
That's a great one. So leadership, to be honest, in my experience and for the work that I've read and followed and wonderful leaders like Mandela, that it's not a title, it's not a position, it's not the power that you hold, and we need to really redefine that. It is the solutions that you're bringing to the world and the lives that you're making better. Right? It's the solutions that you bring to the world and the lives that you're making better each single day by your mere existence.
Yes.
Right? By your mere existence, that, you know, by me existing today, someone's life is made better. And that's what I mean by adding value to the world. Sometimes in this world we have people who just all they want to do is take out from the world.
Yes.
Which is absurd, because I believe that God, the creator of the universe and who brought us this world, brought us here for a purpose. And I think it is important to understand, how am I living my life? Whether you're a politician, whether you're a sweeper, whether you're a cleaner, whether you Teach for Uganda fellow, whether you are, you know, a bank head or someone, a head of the bank, are you adding value to humanity and to the planet while you are still here? Or are you actually removing value from the world?
Hold that thought.
Now that is...
Hold that thought. Tony, you can unmute and speak to us. And I specifically want to ask, not just ask, but compliment what you shared earlier. It, like I was saying, it caught my attention. And you say when you joined Teach for Uganda this year's board chair, it was on the premise that if we all did our small bits, we would go a long way in solving education inequality. But I know it's not just education. I know it is in all spheres of life. I would want you to expound a little bit about if we all did our small bits.
Thank you. Today's on my day, so I'm just not going to really spend so much my time on here. But I just wanted to say, the most important thing in life is really service. The fact that you are on earth to do something positive for the people that do not have, or the people that are not like you, or the people who desire to be like you. So it's very much about service. And I think joining Teach for Uganda and actually meeting James for me was a very interesting situation, because it not only made me understand that I could be around people who are looking forward to impacting people who pretty much have nothing, but also the fact that you're looking at people who are suffering the lack of quality education. So you're dealing with people who are going out to solve the real issues that we are facing in our country today. Now, many people can easily say, that's the government's role, or that's some crazy rich people's role. But these are ordinary people going out to change lives. And I think for me, that really brings out the whole idea of service. So it's just asking any one of you who's listening in, or even you, Lynn, what are you on earth for? You just talked about purpose. The most singular purpose that anyone can, create for themselves or institute in their lives on earth is really that of service. And I think that for me is very, 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 very important. If you think about most of the people who have transformed lives, when Mother Teresa decided to leave her teaching job to go out and feed the world, it was all about service. When people like Martin Luther King decided to go out and fight for people's civil rights, it was all about service. When people like Nelson Mandela decided to go out and fight for freedom, it was all about service. So again, Teach for Uganda is really about service, and personally, I'm very excited to be part of it. And again, really enjoying this conversation. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Tony, for that. And he actually explains it all. Service. It's that simple, precisely, because we set out to. When you set out to start this Teach for Uganda, you wanted to serve. You just wanted to serve.
The drive was to serve.
Exactly.
To serve those children I told you that were in the mirror.
Yes.
That always
in the rear mirror.
In the rear mirror, always echoed in my head. And like ending up here now on this space, I would never have known that this. Like, do you ever know when you're in the dusty roads of Butuntuma that you will end up somewhere?
You can never even dream or imagine.
Exactly. You're first of all worried about even whether you get the resources to ensure to fund that dream.
Absolutely.
And there's a quote that for me always I tell our fellows who are starting out with us. We are now at cohort 7, going to cohort 8. 400 something in the field, doing amazing work in these communities, mentoring kids, doing financial education, climate education, things that I would never. We had a founder even who came to us and said, we learned that financial education, once you teach children how to, especially women, how to handle their finances. Imagine, when do we learn about finances? Me, I started learning finances when I was thrown a credit card at university in the US, and I didn't know even what it was.
I can only imagine the shock.
So there was someone who literally said, if we teach our children early on about financial education, we will be preparing them for the future, that they will be mothers who will be able to save for their families. And we have now over 6,000 girls in our program in these communities doing financial education.
Wow.
At that time, I did not know that this would be a possibility.
Yes.
So let me share this quote by Mandela, and I'm going off what Mr. Otowa mentioned and why we end up here. Mr. Mandela said, I was not a messiah, but an ordinary man who became a leader because of extraordinary circumstances. I was not a messiah, like the way we always treat him like he's our God in Africa of leadership. No, he said there wasn't a Messiah, but an ordinary man who became a leader because of extraordinary circumstances. And so for him, he found himself in the middle of it, and he said, I must do something. And through that, he would find his purpose.
Wow. As we begin to, I think, wind up on this conversation, I want us to reflect on some things that we believe in here at Fidelis Leadership Institute, and that is we are heavy on ethics and creating a critical mass of ethical leaders. And if we're to look at our teachers, I think they upheld their ethics, especially to do with their work. And here we are trying to understand the education that we got, or the education that you want to get. Can it prepare you to become a better ethical leader? And then we ask that if we're to look at ethics, leadership, and education, where do those three meet?
Thank you. They meet in the classroom and also in the classroom of life. There's the classroom of school and the classroom of life. So they meet in both. In the school system or in the curriculum, we should never, ever divorce ethical. The doctors learn. I'm lucky to be married to a doctor, a physician.
Oh, remember, he wanted to be a doctor, so he ended up marrying one.
So I'm very lucky. You know, she's listening in now on X Spaces. Dr. Namara, hi there. You know, so she tells me their ethical code of conduct, it doesn't matter what it controls them, it governs them. They cannot share Lynn's whatever medical information with Kasaga. It's not mine. It guides them, and I love that it holds her, you know, always to guide her work. That should be applied in all sectors of our lives. Ethics should apply in the finances, in the economics, in the teaching. Even the teachers have the code of ethical code of conduct.
Yes, they do.
You know, you cannot do. So why do we always relegate it to the doctors and the teachers, and then us, we just live laissez-faire? It's not fair.
Even lawyers, I think, they also have although theirs is a bit.
So it should be everywhere, but also it should be inculcated in the classroom. I love what I saw in Malaysia. They said nation building starts in the classroom. That's Teach for Malaysia. Nation building starts in the classroom. The leaders we are developing to lead our nation start here. So for them in Malaysia, they start by exposing these children, by taking them to meet Mr. Tony Ottawa in his office. Why do we keep them in this big colonial thing that we created where we just sit in the classroom all day? Why don't we take children on breaks? I've been asking our teachers at the school, are they getting out of the classroom to experience the world? To get mentors like you, to tell you what you want to be in your life. That's where it should start. That's when the leadership and the ethical light bulbs begin to go off. If we are just doing the conveyor belt, come to the classroom, sign papers, we go back to what Martin Luther King shared, that the one educated person for efficiency without morals is a menace to society.
Indeed. And this reminds me of our leaders. And as we wind up, actually, ethics and accountability. If you look at our leaders and their ethical standards, and then when they're challenged with issues of accountability, their ethics either fly out of the window, or they remember they have ethics, but they never applied them. And so when you look at our leaders who have actually acquired an education, we want to think they have ethics, but then when it comes to issues of accountability, then we have challenges. What do you say?
Well, I say that we all are what accomplices in that.
Right.
Because when you look at, even when those things happen, and I don't want to go into politics because it's always a crazy place to go to, but when it happens, some people are saying, well, they should be accountable. Others are like, at least, you know, they are using that money to do something else. Others are, you know, so we are not all on the same page in terms of what should be ethical. But I love the Fidelis, you know, Leadership Institute that you're trying. And at Teach for Uganda, we are just like you, and I'm glad that we are now starting to work together with the guidance of Fiona, Miss Fiona Wall, that we need to start inculcating it in our young people.
Yes.
Because it is those young people that when you start early, in my culture, I don't normally use Runyankore, but we have that saying that my grandmother always told me, who raised me, says, mwana wanje akatikinu kwa kachiri kabisi.
Guess what? That was my school motto in primary.
There you go. So that the tree is only bent when it's still a young seedling. When it is still a seedling.
It can be tweaked.
It can be tweaked, it can be bent. You can even do what with grafting.
Yes.
But when it's already a big tree, can you do grafting? No. So that's why it is a bit challenging. So that's why for us at TFU, at Teach for Uganda, we believe, let's go there. Let's go to our children. And I love that I work with a team and bless them, and I'm sending you greetings and really happy World Teachers Day, that they are there to mold our children, to have what we call the global citizenship education, where they understand who am I, what's my vision, what's my purpose, why am I here, you know, what do I want to be, and then how do I steward myself, the resources God has given me, and my community.
Wow.
That's what we teach. In addition, of course, arithmetic,
and
science, and English,
and literature,
and other things.
But it is important, because I like that we started from a point where you said, my passion was ABCD. I felt my purpose was this, and we are ending still with it. And guess what? Here at Fidelis Leadership Institute, we do trainings, executive trainings. We do, if you're even interested in, we do leadership training for different people. If you're interested, and we are teaching purpose. We are teaching your mission statement. We are teaching you to appreciate who you are, and we're doing personal development and growth. And all these are what create or what build a leader of tomorrow. And this is what we are very passionate about. And I thank you so very much, James. But in the conclusion, your parting shots, we have talked about a lot of things, touched here and there. In conclusion, what say you?
Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity, and I don't take it for granted. But for me, even at TFU, they know me for my quotes because they guide the direction in which I do. I wanted to leave us with this quote, about education by Kofi Annan, and we just ended the UN. He was the former, UN general, and so we just ended the United Nations Global General Assembly, 78th.
78th, yes.
And everyone was saying, how many will we have for us to ever get their sustainable development goals? And for me, I believe the foundation is a rightful, empowering education. And he said, education is a human right with immense power to transform. On its foundation rests the cornerstone of freedom, democracy, and sustainable human development. With immense, it is the power, has the power to transform. On its foundation rests the cornerstones of freedom, the be free, democracy, and sustainable human development. I believe that if we really, really deeply care about sustainable human development in our country and in Africa, we need to work together to ensure, as Tony said, we do our part to extend that quality education to all our children and mentor our youth, like what you're doing at Fidelis, to have this kind of leadership and discover their purpose and potential.
Absolutely. Discover your purpose and potential. I want to thank and recognize Isaac Bakashaba of Bakash Foundation. We're glad to have you. Okello Wilberforce, we're glad to have you. I see we have Honorable Kalibala Jonathan. We're glad to have you. We have those of you who've joined us on our spaces, really it is an honor that you joined us today. I see Claudia, we're glad to have you. Patrick, we are glad to have you. I cannot mention all of you, but I
There's
recognize
a Daffin there, Dr. Namara.
Where is Dr. Daffin? Oh yes, Dr. Namara. Dr. Daffin Namara, thank you for joining us. And don't worry, he's in good hands. And we had a very immense and wonderful conversation. But before we sign out, there's a comment that came through. I think it's a comment or something. This is your handle is, it's sad to read your handle. Let me see. Mugandi one, I think. It says, my daughter is invited to a seminar, 6 year and 4 years, to a path of being medics. I don't know if I understood that, but he says his daughter was invited to a seminar. Big doctors, you can see a photo here.
Wow.
These are already qualified doctors, but the daughter was invited to a seminar.
Wow.
For 6-year-olds and 4-year-olds to attend a seminar given by these doctors. Do you know what this means?
That is now taking the world from the classroom to the reality of life.
Exactly.
And that child probably will never forget that.
This child will never be the same again. This child now clearly knows what their purpose is in life. I think we have another one. And he's, okay, we're going to give you a minute to speak to us in just a bit. Please, if you can unmute and speak to us, and please tell us your name. I'm sorry I failed to read what your name. Please unmute and speak.
Thank you so much. I joined very late. I just bumped into you before, and then I'm like, this is speaking to what I have just been thinking about, because I'm in the United States. I'm James William James, a medical clinical officer by profession. And just last week, my daughters were invited, and I thought it was a joke. They were invited for a seminar on a pathway to medics.
Both your daughters.
6 years and 4 years.
Wow.
Maria and Vicky. Maria and Vicky.
Yes.
And they attended the seminar, and now they are kind of registered in a system where they'll be monitored, and they were promised, since you are Africans, since you are Ugandans, since you are blacks, universities are going to track you down. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just an opportunity perhaps. But then one of them, the 6-year-old, has already graduated she has a certificate in coding.
Wow.
I'm like, we need to revamp education in Uganda, because you are talking about leadership, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Today I was seeing people, you don't dance academy to leadership. No, you must be educated.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot that we need to know about education. We need to revamp, because these guys, look at a girl in pre-K, invited, pre-K is nursery, and then grade 1 is P1. P1, he has, today I have released her to go out for a trip, and she asked, can I have a card, because I can't carry food. Maybe I can go to, she needs a card that has credit on it, so that she can buy food along the way. 6-year-old has a card. Where do you get that in Uganda?
Where do you get that?
Think about how to help our education.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, William. Wow. This is what you talked about earlier. We need financial intelligence.
Yes.
We need to educate our children.
Yes, and expose them, because now Mr. Williams, I didn't catch the other names, children will not be the same.
Never.
I mean, I saw the image of all those doctors lined up. That is now the image that will be inculcated in their heads forever. Now, they could end up being wherever they want to be, but they will always remember that piece as well.
Absolutely. And so teach your children, I forget how they put that word, and they will grow into that. I forget how they put that statement.
Yeah, teach your children in the ways in which you want them to grow, and when they are old, they will not depart from it.
Exactly. Fantastic. It's that simple. Teach your children, and trust me, what you teach them is what they will grow into. So guys, I thank you so very much. Thank you so much, James, for joining us, and those of you who have been in our spaces. Isaac, you are here since we started. Thank you. Mr. Tony Otoa joined and I think got busy a bit, but we thank you. Even Fiona Wall was on call. Thank you so much for joining us. Patrick Oskol says this quality of teachers determines the quality of education. James did speak to it. speak about it. All right, very fantastic. Thank you so very much. I wish you could continue this conversation. Perhaps we will have a continuation of this conversation. But I thank you all for joining us. And James, what's your handle? If people want to reach out to you or look for teach
for Uganda, so it's Kasaga. KASAGA 4, the figure 4 UG, and then it's also teach, as in capital TEACH 4 UG.
Absolutely. Wait, I see Isaac's hand is up. Guys, thank you. Isaac, your hand is up. Let's see if our admin can give you speaker rights. I think he has a comment to say. Isaac, did you want to say something? Okay. We'll see how that goes. But really, James, has been a wonderful conversation. And I believe those of you who are watching Smart 24, and those of you on the X Spaces, it has been worth our time here. And I think, James, we should have more of these conversations because we ought to change the status quo. Now, you said when you went to the US is when you got a credit card.
Yes,
and then you have to teach yourself to how to use it and how to deal with these things. Exactly. And imagine William's children, 4. She's just going for a trip.
4-year-old.
Yes, is going for a trip. It's like, but Dad, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to carry food. I need a card. I need a credit card. Exactly. This is where our children should be thinking in the line. Okay, were we able to get Isaac to speak? Okay. Isaac, if you cannot, you could type maybe. But we want to call it a day here. And thank you so very much. We'll catch you again next time here on Fidelis Leadership Institute. Fat Talks every Thursday, 4 p.m. and we are live on Smart 24 TV, Smart 24 TVs, on DSTVs and GoTV, and is also, if you want to catch more conversations like this, go to their YouTube and also our YouTube at Fidelis Leadership Institute and be part of this conversation. It was myself, Lynn Komjisha, and of course Mr. James Kasaga Arinetwe, the man who is typical Ugandan because he has names from all corners. All right. We thank you and God bless you.
Bless you.